also have guidelines from organizations like Reserve Bank of India to tokenize the data we have on cards and transactions. Apart from this, we also know that there are a lot of costs associated with any kind of breaches and data leaks. And we like to talk about some of the results from the IBM Cost of Data Breach Security Report from this year. And as you can see, United States tops this list, but our country, India, is not very far behind actually. It is at number 14. And we know that India has 2.32 million US dollars of the average cost that has been associated with data breach. These numbers speak for themselves. So we can already think about data being equivalent to risk. And when I say that, it's not just about the average total cost of data breaches in the same IBM study or about the huge percentage of organizations which have had more than one data breach. It is also referring to a lot of operational risk. So it might surprise all of us, but it takes around 277 days of average time to contain and to identify a data breach. This is actually speaking a lot about the title of our webinar, because if we can identify, classify, and discover our assets of data already prior to a breach, we would be well equipped and we would be able to reduce the impact of the breach that happens. So it's very, very essential to know where our sensitive data is residing in our organization, to understand the structure of that, whether it is semi-structures, it is unstructured, or what all. And with that, I would also like to highlight some specific point for India, where the Gartner has forecasted that the end user spending on security and risk management will grow 9.4% in this year itself. And with this scenario in mind, I would like to introduce Comforte. And Comforte is the company which is actually currently helping organizations to solve sensitive data privacy, security, and compliance issues, which are not just taking place in India, but also across the globe. And with about 17 years of protecting PII data for very large selection of banks, Fortune 500 companies, we have learned that it is the data-centric security approach which has become a must-have in the cybersecurity environment. Our solution, Secure DPS, actually is allowing enterprises to take complete control of their sensitive data, no matter where they are located, be it in cloud native applications, in web apps, or in mission critical systems. And with that information, I would also like to introduce the three key principles which we follow at Comforte. The first one, what we do not know, we cannot protect. Being unaware of where your sensitive data assets are residing right now is actually speaking a lot of your unpreparedness to deal with privacy issues later on, to deal with data breaches later on, but also to deal with upfront problems that come in everyday life cycles of data, which you might have with your applications, with your customers, right? The second principle is protection of data at the earliest possible point. Aaron will shortly cover off the benefits of protecting data at the earliest possible point. And we mean the earliest possible point in a data cycle. The earlier we know that we protect the data, or the earlier we protect the data actually, the impactful will be our strategy and efficient would be our strategy to actually deal with a breach or a data leak. Last but not the least, we also believe that deprotecting data is only to be done when absolutely necessary. So we believe in protected data forms a lot. And with that, I would like to hand over to Aaron now to cover off the rest of the story, talking about our security platform and how it is actually enabling organizations to discover the relevant data, also protecting that in its various forms, be it rest, motion, or in use, and how our solution is also easily integratable in your systems. So Aaron, over to you now. I would like to unshare and give over the stage to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Aakriti. So I'll just share my screen, guys. I do apologise. Okay, so you should be able to see my my presentation now.
Yes.
Now we see it. Yep.
Perfect. Slight technical difficulties. Okay, so yeah, as Aakriti very nicely mentioned, Comforte built this data security platform, which essentially aims to give organizations a clear understanding about where their sensitive data is located and what data we store about unique individuals as well. As the second half to our data security platform, we also want to provide this end-to-end protection for your most sensitive data, in line with that data-centric security approach that Aakriti mentioned, where we want to protect the data at the earliest possible point. So that means when that data is being generated, be it when it's generated over an API or when it's entered over a web form over a web browser. But today, with our presentation, we are going to focus on the discover and classify aspect of our data security platform. And this comes back in line with that first principle that Aakriti showed on her slide, where what we don't know about, we cannot protect. So discover and classify is all about understanding your entire IT landscape, seeing what sensitive data needs to be protected so that Comforte can come along and be able to provide the best protection for your needs. So we'll talk about a little bit around the theory of discover and classify, and then we'll show you a high-level demonstration of how it actually works in practice. Okay, so with Secure DPS Discover and Classify, we really aim to provide organizations with a unique way to understand where all of your sensitive data is. And we're essentially breaking this down into 5 simple steps. So in the first stage, we actually want to take a passive copy of all of the available network traffic. So we want to understand exactly how your sensitive data is traversing the network. So this comes in line with that data in motion aspect that we were speaking about. So for example, if there was traffic exchange between 2 applications, and within that traffic, we detected that there was sensitive information, such as names, emails, addresses, tax codes, and so on and so forth, then we would understand that both of those repositories actually contain sensitive data. And therefore, we need to provide some sort of protection for those repositories. In the second stage, we actually use this copy of all of that available network traffic to identify any of those sensitive data repositories. So we can actually build a dynamic inventory that's automatically maintained and updated within our solution. In the third stage, then, we actually start to scan these repositories. So this really comes in line with that data at rest component. And we can perform scanning on structured data sources, but we can also do unstructured repositories as well. So these repositories could be anything from your traditional database vendors, it could be cloud storage, or it could be some file shares that you might have within your organization. So I will show you in the demonstration a list of the vendors that we currently support for scanning, but I will warn you that this list is growing as our experience grows as well. Now, in the fourth stage, this is a really critical component to our discovery and classification process, because it's really where we start to associate any discovered data with unique individuals. And the example that I like to give is that it's all good and well that we find the name John within one of our file shares or databases, but without any context to the name John, we don't know what a John is. It could be a partner, it could be a contractor, it could be an employee, it could be a customer. We don't know at this stage. So in the fourth stage, we really all about consolidating that information, associating it with unique individuals, and ensuring that this is a continuous automated process from there on in. And then in the fifth and final stage, we actually start to catalog and organize all of this data into one central location. So we can start to understand that data lineage, so exactly where John's data is stored, be it a file share, a cloud storage, or a different database. But we also understand exactly what PII data that we store about John, such as his credit card numbers, his tax codes, his government IDs, and so on and so forth. So the fifth stage is really about ingesting all of this data into a single pane of glass and being able to produce that in this master catalog. Okay, so just to add a little bit more depth to some of these stages then. So in the first stage, I mentioned that we actually performing that network analysis to start understanding how sensitive data is traversing the network. So that data in motion aspect. Now, the question I often get asked is, so how do you actually perform this network analysis? And we're actually very flexible in this regard. So we can integrate with a variety of different network sniffing technologies that you might be using at your organization. Some of the most common ones that we come across are Gigamon or Exia. We can do ICAP at a proxy or a firewall level, or we can also do more hardware-based devices, such as network taps or spam ports. So essentially what we want to be doing is extracting those packets from the stream, interrogating them for PII, and then based on our findings, we then produce it for the next stage in our process. So the next stage in our process is really around building that dynamic inventory of those list of repositories that we want to scan for sensitive PII type data. And then in that third stage, we start to scan these repositories to discover all of the sensitive data assets that we require. Now, hopefully you're starting to understand that with our secure DPS discover and classify solution, we are agentless, which gives us really good benefits because we're not so intrusive on those data repositories that we're trying to find data on. So instead of using agents, which is something that a lot of our competitors will do, we actually only require a read-only user account in order to connect to those repositories. So once we've made that connection, we then start performing the scanning, and we're looking for things such as names, email addresses, tax codes, credit card numbers, and so on and so forth. So these repositories, they could be DB2, could be Amazon S3, could be OneDrive, Office 365, your traditional CIF shares, really anything that you've got available within your environment. But essentially with this technique, we have the ability to identify those unknown unknowns. And with shadow IT being so prominent in today's world, where employees are spinning up their own file shares to make the most of storing sensitive data in random locations to bypass security controls that the organization has put in, we have that ability to actually immediately spot this and understand when these file shares are being created or when these databases are being spun up that might contain sensitive PII type data. And then going back to our principle, essentially what you don't know about, you can't protect. So in this stage, we're really about just building this intelligence up to provide those better protection policies in your environment. Okay, so then in stage 4, we actually start to associate this information or associate this discovered data to unique individuals. So this is really where the classification aspect comes into play. So we actually do this with the help of what we call as a root data asset, or more easily put, it's a single source of truth. So this is a CSV file, it's a database, or your Salesforce CRM, where you know that the information stored there is correct about people, such as this is John Smith, this is his tax code, this is his credit card number, and so on and so forth. So now when we're discovering data on these repositories, they are uploaded to our appliances and immediately compared against these root data assets that we have. If we find a match with John Smith, then we immediately know that John Smith might be an employee, it might be a customer, it might be a partner, it could be anything. So this allows us to not only add business context to the data that we're discovering, but also enables us to reduce those false positives as well. And we use a combination of artificial intelligence and machine learning to ensure that this is a continuous and improving process within your environment. So then lastly, in the 5th and final stage, we have the ability to start showing you all of the information that we store about people. So in this example, we've got John Smith here, and we can see within our organization, we store information related to his location, his device IDs, his email addresses, and his phone numbers as well. But that's not all, because we can also understand exactly where we store John Smith's data. So we're starting to understand that data lineage as well. So we can see here that actually we're storing John Smith's data on a database named storage.comforte within our environment. So really, in this last final stage, we're really looking to aggregate all of this discovered data into a single pane of glass so that you can start using it more effectively within your organization. Okay, so I appreciate that was quite a lot of information. So I can go over to a demonstration now, but I just wanted to pause there if anyone had any questions or if there was anything added to the chat that I can meet at the moment. Okay, I'll switch over to the demonstration. Okay, good. Okay, so, oh, sorry, I see some.
Yep.
Chat. So yes, it does integrate with cloud. So we can do Google, we can do Amazon, and also Azure. And yes, this is an agentless solution. So we have no agents whatsoever within our platform. And sorry, I'm not aware of what DFD is. Could you elaborate on what the product DFD is? Data flow diagram. Yes, so it would be done through the network analysis that we run, and we have no agent contained whatsoever. So the next question from Amit is how you identify what is sensitive and what is not, and where is collected data stored. So we basically, as part of the solution, we come with 39 entity packs out of the box. So these are related to your personally identifiable information, such as names, email addresses, tax codes, and so on. Now, these can be modified depending on your environment, and when you start training the system, they can be tweaked as well. You can also define your own custom content that you need as well, but we support your traditional regex patterns. We also do different functions and also dictionaries as well. Can it identify, the next question, sorry, from Karishma is, can it identify incremental changes in a database? I'd have to ask you again about what you mean exactly by that, because once we've made that initial connection to these databases or data sources, we actually analyze the data structure itself. So we'll understand how many tables you've got, what sort of schemas you've got, and then make a decision on what sort of tables that we want to scan. Because of course, there's no need to scan the entire data set because it's not very cost effective. It's also going to take quite a lot of time. So we do understand changes in the databases. We also have a baseline as well. So we know what tables to scan in the initial case. The next question from Kiran is it SaaS or deployed in our environment? So it is deployed in your environment. So we can do cloud, we can do hybrid, or we can do on-premise, but it is not a SaaS-based product. No. And I believe I've answered the next question down with the previous one. Next question from Amit is, does it applicable of software source code as well? So at the moment, we cannot scan source code within your environment. If that's where your question is heading, Amit, happy to elaborate on that if you need. Okay, so that's just about all of the questions for now. So I will go through the demonstration, but of course, if you've got any further questions or you need some clarifications, then please enter them into the chat and we can cover that again. Okay, so on the screen, we've got our demonstration environment, but it's really useful for us to actually walk through those 5 stages of discovery and classification that we talked about. So on the screen, we're showing you this topology of an organization's network. So where we perform that network analysis, we've actually been able to understand exactly what repositories you've got and how they are connected with each and every device within your environment. So we're immediately starting to understand that data flow across your organization. You can see here on the left-hand side, we can filter based on the location of your repositories. We can also filter based on the subnetwork. So if your repository was hosted outside of your company's subnet, we will be able to understand what IP addresses it is on and where it is located as well. Now, one of the most critical aspects of this network topology diagram is that if I was actually to select the CRM application, we can immediately see that this CRM application has a relationship with several other devices within the environment, where from that network analysis, we've actually spotted a traffic exchange between the two repositories. Of course, an obvious example would be from an application to a database, but we've been able to pick that up from that data analysis or network sniffing that we've been doing. Now, from that network analysis, we start to maintain this dynamic inventory of a list of repositories that we want to scan to locate sensitive PII type data. So you can see here that we support a variety of different vendors, from Amazon Aurora databases, we've got Amazon Redshift and Amazon S3. We do SIFs, we do Google Cloud, Google Drive, and a variety of different database vendors as well. But you can also see here that we actually capture the exact URL of these repositories. And you can also see that we're using this native connection techniques in order to provide that connection. So you can see here with the SIFs, we're using SMB. But if I was to scroll down, we can see we've got an Oracle database that is using JDBC. OneDrive, where we're using the OneDrive protocol, and so on and so forth. Now, before I move on to the next screen, I just want to highlight the two columns on the right-hand side. So we have this PII candidates column and also this PII column. So effectively, any information that is located on the repositories is uploaded to those appliances, and then it's processed and compared against those root data assets that we spoke about. So until we've been able to find a match, they will be considered as PII candidate data. Once we found a match against our root data assets, they are then streamed against these PII columns. So they are now considered as managed PII, and we can start to use those more effectively within our environment. In the next stage then, so now we've started to correlate this found sensitive data against unique individuals, we can start to use that more effectively inside the application. So we can see here that we've got a list of data assets. So data assets, they're similar to virtual groups, or really what makes sense to the organization, such as different locations so that we can comply with local privacy regulations, such as GDPR, CCPA, POPIA, and so on and so forth, or different, or depending on the relationship to the organization, such as different employees, different partners, or different contractors as well. Now, if I was just to select the customer's USA data asset, we can immediately start to see a breakdown of exactly where my USA customer data is stored and where it is in process. So with it being processed, this is our data in motion aspect. If I was just to click on the stored aspect here, we then start to drill down even further into exactly which repository types, which vendors, and which file types contain USA customer data. I can even drill down even further. So if I was to select the database repository type, we can see that we've got a variety of different databases, different vendors, and the exact URL of these databases that contain USA customer data. Now, as I've mentioned, we also have the ability to scan unstructured data sources. So we're looking at different document types, different XML files, JSON files, and so on and so forth. If I was to select the CSV file and scroll down, we can see that we've got a list of CSV files that contain USA customer data. Now, I can even drill down even further to see exactly what USA customer data is stored within these files. So I'm just going to select this PII object here, and we can see that within this CSV file, we contain different contact information and also different insurance numbers inside the CSV file. So I will just warn you that anything that's highlighted in the black that is contained within the CSV file. Anything that is grayed out slightly, that's not contained within the CSV file, but it's associated with this unique individual anyway. And then in the last stage of the process, we can then start to use this data more effectively. So we supply this data subject access request ticketing system, which is designed for organizations that process PII, but also assist in handling the requests from different data subjects. So here we can create tickets, we can review PII, we can generate reports, and we can also send that data out to data subjects. So if I was just to select the John Smith ticket in the center here and immediately select the personal data usage, we now can see all of the personal data that we store about John Smith throughout our organization. So such as the different contact information that we've got, the different financial information, the government IDs, personal information, and so on and so forth. Of course, this does depend on how much PII that you store about your people within the organization, but this is just a sample data set that we have available on the screen. But that's not all, because we can also start to understand exactly where we store John Smith's data. So this is in regards to that data lineage aspect. And we can see here that we've got these different transactions. So here we're looking at data in motion, and I can see on the 12th of March 2018 that one document was updated or transferred on this CRM application in the middle. And if I was to expand that, I can see that the information here was actually updated. So different birthdays, the CVV file, and the occupation as well. But of course, we also do that data at rest aspect as well. So different files, so the different files that contain John Smith's data, and also the databases that contain John Smith's data as well. Okay, so that was really just a very high-level overview of our discovery and classification process. So we talked about how we can perform that network analysis through the use of different network sniffing technologies, how we can scan structured but both unstructured data sources, while we can also associate that to unique individuals and produce it into a usable manner, as you can see on the screen. I will mention before we finish that we also provide a rich API so that you can integrate and send this data out to any other locations that you might be using, such as ServiceNow for a ticketing system, or to enhance your DLP systems as well. And with that, I will just take a look at the chat to answer any questions before I hand back over to Aakriti. Okay, so the first one is from Kapil. So does it create its own library basis on the PPI information? So we have our own library of PII information that we are looking for sensitive data. Of course, that can be customized depending on your requirements and depending on the location that you are based in. What languages does it support? So of course we deal with Arabic, we deal with English, and we will also be able to deal with any sort of locations related to that as well. So I believe it's the Latin 12 character set, but if there was a character set that we didn't support, then it only takes 3 to 4 weeks development time in order to do that. Another one from Divya is, how is your inventory protected? So at this stage, we are not protecting the database or the data source that we are using. We are simply just running that discovery and classification to understand what data is there, and then we can start to use the intelligence in order to provide that protection. And that protection would ideally come through our Secure DPS Enterprise solution, where we can look at that tokenization aspect. Another one from Abhishek. So can it search in text files? Yes, that's correct. That's not a problem. And the last one from where do we exactly deploy the product in line with the switch? Yes, so we would like to deploy, we basically have two components with our solution. So we have the console manager, which is the screen that you're seeing on here. And we also have an analytic appliance. So those analytic appliances will be actually located in the data center or in your Amazon VPC or Azure network location. So basically they're as close to the repositories as they can be, so that we don't have any performance impacts. In terms of the network analytic appliance as well, so that will be deployed in your data center. So that is the only hardware appliance that we have, but that is required in order to scan and understand those packets that you have as well. Can you search image files? No, that's not a capability at the moment. There's other tools such as the OCR recognitions to do that at the moment. Okay, I will answer these questions probably in the chat if you don't mind, because I appreciate we haven't got a large amount of time left for Aakriti to finish her last bit.
Right, Aaron, I'll just quickly reshare and present the last bit. Okay, I hope you all can see my presentation.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
So very quickly, the last part of it, Comforte is ready to answer all those interesting interactive questions for you. And we're very proud that we have great expertise, and we were actually founded in 1998 by the creators of Connectivity Solution for Mission Critical Systems. And as you all can see, we have our headquarters based in Germany, in Wiesbaden, and we also have offices in US, in Singapore and Sydney. And we are very, very proud of our customers. 3 of the 5 largest credit card processors in the world, 27 of the largest banks in the world, and 2 of the largest retailers in the world. And it's also nice to maybe know for some of you what our customers actually like about our solution. Here, I'd like to definitely highlight that the performance levels are mostly intact when deploying our solution. That's really something which customers are looking for. They do not want any software solution to cause any performance degradation, and that's what also we can secure for you. We have a solution that is quickly deployable, and we also have tools and software solutions that are financially and also structurally very, very efficient. Last but not the least, we are proud of our industry recognition for our data security platform, our professional team, and our commitment to client success. And I thank every one of you for your participation today. And I'm really looking forward for your queries, for your interest in our solution. You can reach out to us via email. You can also drop us a message on LinkedIn and also follow our blog post on our website. And with that, I'd like to open the floor for Q&A. And I think, Aaron, you can then take the questions, and also Cyberfrat can take on from there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Aakriti. Thank you, Aaron. The session was really good, I believe. Do you want to address the remaining questions, Aaron?
Yes, so I've been doing that in the chat while Aakriti was finishing off. But if there's any questions that I've missed, please can you post them again?
So I think we missed a question from Mr. Raghavendra. He is asking, is it possible to create custom data points to track and alert? What is the alerting mechanism?
So we can integrate with a scene solution such as QRadar or Splunk. So we can actually, if data was updated or transferred within one of your repositories, we would understand if that was actually changed. So we can do that as well. And we do understand that data lineage and the data flow. So that can be integrated into the solution as well.
Okay. Thank you. The next question was from Mr. Ritesh Bhatia. In that case, Comforte will be having access to all SPI?
Yeah, so that's a question that we get answered quite a lot, or get asked quite a lot. So basically, we don't actually store any of the sensitive data on our appliances. We only store the metadata of people's information. Now, we are looking at the moment of a way to actually tokenize that information within our systems. So as that data gets streamed up into our appliances, it will be essentially protected. So no one has the ability to actually see that. We also have a variety of different security controls on our console manager. such that we can integrate with Active Directories. So we've got that role-based access control as well. But if you want to go into more detail on that, I'm happy to take it on offline.
Thank you. Before we move on to the next one, I would request the participants to quickly fill the feedback form. You will also receive a participation certificate right after you fill it, so don't miss that out. I believe Mr. Rajesh Zaveri has raised his hand. So can we just invite him on the stage to speak up?
Sure.
Yeah, very good evening. Thank you very much for providing information. Just want to understand how we can differentiate structured and unstructured data with these tools. Number one. Number two, need to understand, do we need any licensing part, or how it will be, available on the client server environment?
Sure. So we basically have two techniques to apply scanning on structured data sets versus unstructured data sets. So for structured data sets, we use a variety of different entity extraction techniques. And before we do any scanning or crawling of those repositories, we actually understand the schemas and how the data sets are actually structured. So we would understand if it's structured or if it's unstructured before we do any of the scanning. In relation to unstructured data sets, we actually use natural language processing, which comes under one of the artificial intelligence branches. So we can start to scan those data sets and extract any of the sensitive information from within that. We do also have a licensing model as part of the solution. So it is based around the number of users within your Active Directory. As I understand, Aakriti, I believe there might be another component as part of that.
Yes, so it's the number of users basically in the Active Directory, Aaron. Absolutely correct. And for our other set of solutions, we also have licensing units and metrics, for example, unique protection data elements. But specifically for this one, discovery and classification, it is the number of users where we base our licensing on. And it is for a 3-year and a 5-year period, especially for the enterprise solutions we offer to our customers.
Can I ask one more question, please?
Of course.
Yeah. We have, our Salesforce application on cloud. So is it possible to give the solution over there also with respect to the PI? Because our sales people are collecting, varieties of PI. I mean to say varieties of, different countries of, PI. So do we have any provision for us to, make any selection with respect to any country-specific compliance department?
So at the moment, we don't have the ability to discover and classify data on SaaS-based products, but it's certainly on the roadmap for a future iteration.
Okay, I would like to have a word with you maybe after this seminar. I've given my number, so please can you ask your some representative to contact me? Thank you very much, and it was nice talking.
Perfect. Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh sir. Okay, so participants, any more questions? You can still put them in the chat box, or we can move ahead to the quiz. Okay, I think, okay, we got one more question from Mr. Jatin. Is this embedded on the Office 365 systems?
Yes, we've recently announced support for Office 365 to discover and classify the data there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Aaron. Thank you, Aakriti, for being here. I'm sure you enjoyed your time here. It was a very interactive session, yeah, thank you for taking this session.
Yeah, thank you for
okay,
that.
so yeah. Okay, so Mr. Abhishek has a follow-up question. If you're working with Office 365, then you're working with, okay, he's just express. Okay, never mind. So I hope you all have filled the feedback form. Those who haven't filled it yet, please go ahead and do it. Meanwhile, just allow us a minute to set up the quiz. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, you have to go to www.kahoot.it and just enter the game pin, or you can scan the QR code to enter the quiz. Okay, guys, quickly join in. The top 3 winners of this quiz gets Amazon Kindles. So don't miss out. Quickly join in. We will be starting in the next 2 minutes. And as most of you might know, Kahoot works on the basis of fastest finger first. So you have to be quick with your answers. And okay, 30 seconds left. We will start in the next 30 seconds. Okay, last 10 seconds. Okay, let's start. Which one of the following principles hold true for Comforte's data security solution and platform? Come on, quick. Quite a close one. Let's see the scoreboard. So right now at the top is JB, and at the second is Kiran Belsekar. Okay, so now at the top is this Karishma. Let's see how this looks like at the end. So the third question is, as per a IBM report, which country was the costliest for average total cost of data breach for the 12th year in a row? Okay. Oh, Karishma is still at the top, followed by Mr. Anand. India has already implemented the data privacy law and bill. Okay, most of got it right. Karishma is still at the top. The scoreboard, I think, looks the same since the last 3 questions. Come on, guys. What are you? Don't miss out the chance to win. Come on. I think this is an easy one. Okay. The second last question. Can Comforte It discovery and classification support data in motion? Okay, so one question left before we. Okay, Karishma is still at the top. Great. The last question. What 2 techniques does secure DPS discover and classify use to access repositories? Select all that apply. Okay, at the third position is Mr. Anand Sinha. Congrats. Congrats, Mr. Anand. Oh, at the second is Karishma. Let's see who is at the top. Who took over? Mr. Anil C. Congratulations. Congratulations to all of us. Okay, so that was interesting. So our team will reach out to you for the details of this one. And now that we are left with is the Wheel of Fortune for the feedback form. So we'll just quickly move on to that. Just allow us 2 minutes. Okay, the one winner from this will get a chance to win Cyberfrat goodies. So let's spin it. Congrats, Mr. Nilesh Patil. Thank you for letting us know your feedback. And yeah, with that, I think we have come to the conclusion of today's session. Thank you, Aakriti, once again. We really enjoyed listening to you. And yeah, I hope the audience liked you as well. So yes, thank you so much, participants, for joining. We'll meet next Wednesday with yet another amazing session. So until then, have a good day, and yes, see you again on next Wednesday.